you right now, alright? And that match you remember?
Well, like all Dream Theater songs, and this one maybe more so than usual, the songs are long. A lot of long songs, a lot of epics. If you just want to hear, you know, Green Day, you've come to the wrong place. But if you're willing to sit down and be taken on a journey through many twists and turns that will take you from Opeth land all the way over to Pink Floyd land, then you've found the right album. This is the album for you.
In peaceful sedation, I lay half awake, and all of the panic inside starts to fade. Hopelessly drifting, begging in beautiful agony.
Well, before we had this album, I did have a thought in the back of my mind that it would be cool to do an album filled with epics, and every Dream Theater album has had one or two epics. You know, if you look at the catalog, there's always like a Learning to Live, or Change of Seasons, or Octavarium, In the Name of God, In the Presence of Enemies. Every album has had a song like that, and in the back of my mind, before we started this album, I thought it could be really cool to have an album filled with those type of epics. So we ended up writing these 4 big ones, all of which are over the 12-minute mark, and it felt very satisfying. I think we definitely achieved that kind of goal that I had, at least in the back of my mind, of an album of epics. But we did inevitably want to have some balance, and ended up writing 2 shorter songs as well. So it's almost like we wrote 4 songs for the fans and for ourselves, and then 2 songs, you know, for radio and for the label, you know, something that's a little easier to swallow. So I think it's a good balance.
Well, Black Clouds and Silver Linings, it's our 10th album, and what can I tell you? I think musically there's a lot of areas throughout the album where you can see that we're taking a noticeable nod towards our roots, our musical roots. I think that if you were familiar and a die-hard fan, you would hear some of the influences from Images and Words and Awake, and even A Change of Seasons and Scenes from a Memory. That kind of, there's similarities there, but at the same time it sounds very contemporary. It sounds like it does belong in today's musical environment as far as that style.
When we went into the studio to make this record, it was just the next record, you know. The 10th album to us is just as important as the 4th was, and just as important as the 17th will be. You know, they're all equally important for us.
And lyrically, it's dealing with, I think, what every one of us can relate to a certain extent. We all have our own personal experiences, but life itself, with its challenges and its victories, and just how dynamic life can be. You know, but kind of, you know, without getting deeply into it, that kind of sheds some light onto it.
Me and John Petrucci wrote them all, and 5 out of the 6 songs are stories out of our own lives. The only exception is a rite of passage, which is kind of just a fictional, well, just kind of an observation.
Yeah, the fiction was on Systematic, and Black Clouds is all nonfiction. It's all real stories, things that happened to me. A Nightmare to Remember, A Can of Tuscany, they're all real episodes, and it was a really good experience to write from very personal events that actually happened to me. It was kind of cool to do that, you know, to be a storyteller.
Mike came up with the album?
I'm pretty sure he did, yeah.
It's not at all a concept album. I mean, these are 6 individual songs with individual identities. You know, The Shattered Fortress is kind of an exception, because that's part of a series of songs that existed from previous albums. But other than that, each one of these songs were fresh and written with a clean slate. No concept involved. But once we started writing, once me and John started getting the lyrics together, we started to see a common thread in what we were writing about, which were these dark, heavy situations, you know, dealing with death and recovery from addiction, and, you know, near fatal accidents, and all these kind of negative, dark situations, and that's kind of where I thought of the album title. You know, because there's an expression: every cloud has a silver lining, meaning any bad situation you're in, you know, something positive can come out of it. And the lyrics that John and I were writing kind of had that common thread. These were dark subjects, but in each case they were kind of optimistic and hopeful. And then musically as well, I thought the title totally summed up Dream Theater's music. You know, the Black Clouds is the heavy, dark metal side of the band, and the Silver Linings are the progressive, melodic, you know, dynamic side of the band. So I thought it was a perfect title to sum up the music and the lyrics.
Well, I mean, the title, like Black Clouds and Silver Linings, is basically what I think each and every one of us experiences in life. It's about your trials and tribulations, your victories, your challenges through life. You know, we have our ups and downs in life. And no matter how difficult life gets, it makes us stronger as a person, as a soul, to see our way through the difficult times so that we do have the silver linings. So no matter how bad something looks, you know, if you can see it through, you will realize a better place. And I think that's what it's talking about. You know, lyrically, you know, it's talking about some moments in life, you know, whether it be a nightmare to remember where it's not so pleasant, or, you know, losing a loved one, or, you know, experiencing just everyday to-day life and what is unexpected or what is sought after in relationships, in the way that we continue to grow and we continue to learn as people. This is, you know, these are our ups and downs through life. So that's the metaphor behind Black Clouds and Silver Linings.
I think so. People have told me that before, that they can relate to a specific song because of something that they went through or they're going through. And of course, it's happened to me. You know, I've often listened to songs that have moved me so much and it helped me get through something. Or you know, songs can just remind you of what you were going through in that point in your life. You know, as soon as you hear it, you go back there. So, you know, that's the way music is.
Well, the writing of this music is the same as it's ever been. I mean, we've done 5 out of the last 6 albums in the studio, recorded and written simultaneously. But that being said, the writing process itself is no different than it's been since day one. You know, even since the very, very early days, it starts with the instrumentalist just jamming, and that's how the ideas come out. And then once we have a list of ideas and riffs and progressions, then we start to arrange them and develop them and embellish them, you know, together. And it's a big collaborative process. That's the way it's always been. You know, it's not like since we started writing in the studio it's changed. The process of the writing has always been this way. It's the recording process that's different now. You know, now we'll immediately record them, as opposed to in the old days where we would write them and then put them on the shelf for 6 months and then have to like go back and relearn them like playing a cover song. So that's the only difference. You know, now we just get to record them immediately while they're fresh and, you know, while we're focused on them.
It's usually as a whole, you know, but generally speaking, yeah, it's in the studio, and it would be, you know, basically with instruments all set up, we kind of record the way that they used to in the 70s. They'd be in a studio with all the equipment set up, all you know, everything's mic'd and ready to go. So once it might come from John Petrucci or Jordan or whoever with a seed, you know, like, hey guys, what do you think of this? Whether it's Mike playing a groove on his drums or John fiddling around the guitar or whatever, some of that comes from like those guys having a seed, and then from there kind of grow, you know, establishing it and embellishing on that idea, and one thing kind of leads to another. So in a lot of instances it's like that, and once we feel that there's a concrete idea and it's finished, you know, the message has been completed as far as that song goes, then immediately Mike will jump in and start actually tracking the real drums for it. So there'll be these ghost tracks of guitar and keyboards and bass, but then it's him actually getting in there and getting the drums done while it's fresh in his head as to where all the movements were going and how that song was basically, you know, brought to where it is. And then from there, sometimes, you know, the bass will be laid down, but more than likely it's the rhythm guitar, and then from there it's to jump into the next idea. But, you know, sometimes an idea will come from a guy going, you know, like whether Jordan or John say, hey, you know what, I had this from home, what do you guys think? Here's some ideas, and what do you think? And then, oh yeah, that's cool, that's not, and whatever, and then piecing it together that way.
Usually the long songs just naturally that's the way we most naturally write. If we just like were to sit down and start a song and not have a direction or a definitive idea, it'll just naturally become a long song. It's usually when we have the shorter songs that we actually have to sit down and say, okay, let's purposely try to write a short song. But the long ones happen naturally. I mean, if we were just to start writing from scratch, always when we start an album, the first song we write together is huge and long. It's always like one of the longest songs. If you look at all of our albums, the first song written is always long, only because there's like all these ideas built up, and you know, that's where we naturally start off. This time around, though, there were 4 epics really on the album, and I mean, when we started the album, I kind of thought it would be cool to have an album with a lot of long songs, but.
And then finally, I mean, once all the music has been written, and those guys are done with that part of it, then it's melodies for the song, vocal melodies, and then it's lyrics, and then I come in. So basically, just before me, Jordan gets done all his keyboards, all the real tracks. I mean, John Petrucci's already done his guitar, mostly his rhythm. There might be the odd solo left. John Myung has more than likely done his bass, and then I come in and finish all the vocals at the very end.
And then each guy in the band might say, you know, I'd really like to write the lyric for that. I'd like to write the lyric for that. So I'd like to write the lyric for that. You know, I really want to fall into that. So it's something that you might feel partial to, that you feel that it really is something that you can convey lyrically and embellish upon the actual musical movement itself. It's not a matter of being pushed aside, it's a matter of whether which member feels that they strongly want to write that lyric.
Well, I mean, generally the Dream Theater philosophy is to not have limits and to, you know, let anything happen, but of course we do have certain boundaries. You know, if somebody throws something out there that's just blatantly out of left field or just sucks, you know, we will put our foot down, and ultimately me and John Petrucci as producers ultimately will say if something's working and not working, but we try not to have limits. But you know, of course there's a certain line that you have to draw at a certain point.
I think that once again, a personal criticism is sometimes we do that. We kind of jar off into left field, and maybe it wasn't the best thing for the song. But having said that, if the song itself is just a wacky song, then anything goes. Who cares,
Yeah.
you know? Like The Dance of Eternity. That's a great example of we just kind of went over the top.
Yeah.
It's like whatever. It doesn't really matter. Whatever key.
Yeah.
You know, if anything, it's going to kind of hit people in a way that they're going to be like, whoa, what was that? But if we were to do that in the middle of Through Her Eyes, it would just be stupid.
Well, I mean, I think sonically we're always trying to bring in new, especially Jordan. He's always trying to bring something in that will somehow convey a stronger message, you know, throughout his rig, and somehow embellish whatever the message is that we're trying to send musically. So I think that's always an experimentation, you know, and that always has some new elements to show.
As fate would have it, I've been in the studio with Dream Theater recording keyboard tracks, like, you know, the days leading up to NAMM, and as soon as I get back the morning that I wake up, I go back into the studio, and one of the main instruments that I've been using in tracking is Omnisphere. Everybody loves it. The guys in my band, they look forward to when I call up a sound on it. They're pretty impressed with the whole thing. We've been entering into the Gothic domain quite a bit on this album.
I think one of the guys said that somewhere, and it's been haunting me ever since. I'm over here on this press tour, and I hear this Gothic comparison everywhere. I don't know where the hell it came from. I don't know.
Not true.
I don't think so. I mean, there's some moments on the album that, you know, they have like that dark tone. There's definitely a darkness to some of the songs, but we're not a goth band.
No.
It's not us. Sorry.
I mean, you know, I think that musically, I think that this album, it shows, like our biggest priority is that we feel that we want to be able to look back on any one album and say, well, you know, from our most recent to the one previously, that we've grown once again as a band musically, and that we feel that we're still evolving, you know, and I think that it really does show itself, and I think that our songwriting is becoming better, you know, just simply better. I think it's more focused, not that it wasn't focused before, but there's more cohesiveness as to its direction, where it's going. It sounds, you know, it's very fluid-like, you know, easy going along with it, and I think that really establishes the energy and power in it, as well as the balance musically, you know, as to what it's expressing. So that might be some of the differences, but I mean that does exist on a lot of the other albums. So, you know.
Like I said earlier, every album is important to us. We've never made a record on autopilot or you know, cruise control. You know, every time we go into the studio, we're as hungry and passionate as ever. So making this record, we poured our heart and souls into it, and we wanted to make every song as good as they could be. You know, we want to have that Dream Theater sound and style. We want to be progressive and heavy, melodic, but at the same time we want to continue to grow and develop. You know, we don't want to sound like the same as we did in 1992. You know, we want to have that same foundation, but where we go every time, we want to be able to change and roll with the times and the sounds that are, you know, contemporary. So this was like any other album, you know, it was important, and we're very proud of it.
That song was originally called Halloween, and we wrote it during Halloween in New York, and to me, the whole like tonality of that song was very, I just keep thinking of Danny Elfman. It sounds like it should be in like a Tim Burton movie, you know, and I think to further go in that direction, it had to be heavy, you know. It just makes it sound more sinister, and it just went there, you know. We could have done the exact same thing with standard tuning. It wouldn't have sounded as dark, I think.
A Nightmare to Remember was about a car accident that my entire family was in, that we all survived. My father was actually very badly injured, but it was a family car accident that was horrible. Wow.
A Nightmare to Remember is a story that John wrote about a car crash he was in when he was a kid.
You know, when John Petrucci's talking about A Nightmare to Remember being in an accident with his family. Well, I've been in a car accident before. I can relate. You know, it's not something that I have to literally have gone through or experienced. It's something maybe that I've just observed, or something that I've read in literature that I can relate to, that I can, as much as possible without actually experiencing it, personally experiencing it, that I can interpret to say something to me, to strike a chord with me, so that it becomes me.
We've always had heavy parts. I mean, even if you go back to our very first album, the very first song on our very first album, Fortune and Lies, I mean, that's like a thrash influence, you know. It just was a primitive version, and it, you know, the production wasn't huge, but it was just as heavy as anything else. So that's always been there. Every one of our albums has had that element, and that's nothing new. But it's surely something that I love. I mean, I'm definitely the biggest metalhead in the band. But John Petrucci, even though he may not listen to as much metal as I do, I mean, he surely loves the sound of a heavy guitar and a crunch. I mean, that's like, you know, that's one of the things that he loves about the guitar.
That's a very specific sound, and like you said, a lot of dark metal bands use that. But you know, for me, like when I listen to stuff that's more soundtrack-ish, you know, it always has that type of sound, especially like Tim Burton movies. You know, it has that movement.
As far as the vocals go, I mean, when we have these heavy parts, a lot of times I think James's clean vocals on top maybe take away from the heaviness, so that's why sometimes, you know, maybe I'll do a vocal thing to, you know, in songs like Glass Prison or Constant Motion, A Dark Eternal Night or Nightmare to Remember, my vocals are a little bit more predominant there to kind of create a heavy balance to what James's vocals do. Well, anything I'm listening to is surely going to have an impact on our music from my perspective. Anything I bring to any album, which is quite a lot as the, you know, a writer and the drummer and the producer, whatever I'm listening to is going to have an impact. But it's not necessarily the band's influence. So the fact that I love Slayer and Lamb of God and Sepultura and whatever, it doesn't necessarily, it's going to bring a piece to the puzzle. So did Death Magnetic have an impact on the album? It surely had an impact on my perception of the record and what I brought to the sessions, but not necessarily as a band. I don't even know if the other guys have heard it. I think maybe a couple of the guys may have heard it, but some of the other guys may not have even heard it.
And that's what we were going for. So it's not so much, you know, an influence of listening to that kind of music. It's more of what we set out to do and then what technique was necessary. If I'm going to do something like that, I'm going to use a detuned guitar and I'm going to crank up the distortion and, you know, have it sound as evil and dark and scary as I possibly can.
And hit me in the nuts. Fuck! My hands still have a metallic smell to them, after all these years. Papa Nut lives up to its name. Oh. Alright, I need a hernia operation. Did the computer stop?
Yes, it did.
Fuck me!
I think it should be.
That was easy.
Instrumental section. Keyboard solo.
I think it should just be the fucking mental section.
The mental
Oh, excuse me.
guitar solo. Clarinet solo.
Yeah, the clarinet. We got to do the clarinet. Yes.
Marimba solo.
What about the kazoo?
Kazoo.
Kazoo.
The glockenspiel section.
Right.
Kazoo
And the
unison.
Steven Spielberg section.
Right. And then the thing in fifths.
Right.
Over and out.
And then the Adam Goldberg section.
Right.
And then the one Adam 12 bit.
And then the part that goes like this.
We bust into. I just lost my inspiration.
You know, easy come, easy go.
All right,
That's what she said.
I'll tell you what I was gonna say, and now. Oh wait.
What?
Okay. instrumental setup stuff. We do guitar solo over the 3 sections. We go to the original bridge idea, the keyboard solo over that.
Like the whole thing was doing, like the whole box thing, the crazy shit.
And then we go to a chorus. And then we go to an outro.
Woo! Bahama Mama, we got the song. We got the rest of the album all done and ready to rock. Woo! Bahama Mama. There must have been MSG in that.
Oh, it had to have been. Isn't it?
He's lost and we all have.
All right, it is Wednesday, November 26th. Is that correct? Day before Thanksgiving. So here we go. This is song 6, The Bull. This is going to be take 1 for you.
Whenever you bring up the subject of masonry and you start to have a conversation about it, people usually don't know what it is, right? It's very mysterious, you know. They kind of, well, what is it? Is it a brotherhood? Is it a religion? And so I've had many conversations with people to the point where I was like, well, I got to find out what this is. You know, you watch those shows on the History Channel, and it's all shrouded in conspiracy. You know, I just thought it would be an interesting topic, so I started to read about it. And the song "A Rite of Passage" uses just tons of Freemason symbolism. And in fact, one of the things I was reading, one of the references was mentioning Dan Brown's novel. Okay. And it was called the Solomon Key in the literature I was reading.
Or that G riff.
Go back to that.
Yeah, it feels like that's such a cool riff for Jordan to solo over, and for you to be riffing too, because if it's only underneath your solo, you're never going to be playing it.
Yes. I know what you're saying. I think it'd just be nice to have something.
You want the solo all your own. You don't want to share it. You don't want to share the riffs.
It's not so much that. It's we do talk about doing things a lot. We do that a lot. I like when we have, in Glass Moon, it was 2 different solo sections, and in Fatal Tragedy, it's 2 different.
All right, I'm down with that concept. Then how can we utilize that G riff more than just once under your solo? Then what if we play it as a band? We do the full riff as a band before the solo, but then you can't enter on that. You want to enter on that G riff.
Yeah.
I'd hate to not ever play that again. It's a really cool thing, especially out of the D.
Well, we can reverse it. I can play the riffs, which is what we originally had.
That was the original plan.
It seems arbitrary, but...
Well, it's not arbitrary because it's establishing the riffs.
Right.
This way, when it happens underneath the solo, it's been established. Actually, just showing up underneath your solo, that's arbitrary.
Yeah.
Establishing it first would give it a purpose.
It wouldn't be the first time we did that. these riffs have existed by themselves with the purpose of probably being vocal, so we want to hear them that way. But if it was just a background riff to a solo, we probably wouldn't give it any other thought.
I think they're too good. They're too good, too strong.
Too good to waste.
To just happen once underneath the solo and not even get it stay in the sun.
Right. All right.
What are you talking about? 1, 2, 1, 2.
I think going back to 1 is essential.
So then it could be 1, 2 instrumentally, then 1, 2, 1, 3 underneath the solo.
And then a possible 1.
Possible 1 as well for the solo?
1, 2, 1, 3.
And then that would set up the keyboard solo in the G minor?
Yeah.
And Jordan's whole solo is just the G minor?
Well, that's yet to be seen. We can.
I have to try the G minor.
And we can.
Is there any way we could utilize the 2 of the 3 riff in conjunction with the G minor? So they're not just for a guitar solo.
We could, but now we're
the 1
in circles.
Wait a minute. The 1 goes really well with the G minor, right? So if I did the 1 and then went into the G minor, that'd be cool.
Yeah, what if when you do a 1, 2, 1, 3, and then we hit the 1 to go to Jordan,
and then it goes to the
G minor. So he would only be sharing the 1 riff with you.
Right.
I'd be curious to hear that. And then we hit the E flat with you guys doing the unison.
The only problem is I wanted it to go 1, 2, 1, 3, 1.
You want a 5-headed solo.
It's the satisfaction of like his.
Wait.
If the original riff is the 1. It's the satisfaction of coming back to that to finish.
Right.
That if you just go 1, 2, 1, 3, then you never get back to the beginning.
I understand.
That's what I'm trying to create.
Hey Rick.
Yeah.
Just throw your hands in the air and wave them like you just don't care. Let me hear you say ho.
The red light should.
Ah, gave it away. Let me hear you say ho.
Oh.
Say ho, ho. Ho, ho. Say good to go, yeah.
Let's do it.
Just throw your hands in the air and wave them like you just don't care. Let me hear you say ho.
Oh.
Say ho, ho.
Oh. Oh.
Say good to go, yeah.
Good to go. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Say eat my ass and balls.
I think draw the line there.
All right. That doesn't fall under your job.
No, not under the job. Not part of the job description.
All right. Whenever you're ready, eyes are ready. Take 2. Doubles. I should be wearing a Chicago Bulls jersey right now. Fuck. That's a serious blown opportunity. Damn. Doubles. Do I have one in the wardrobe case? No, it's only Celtics and Dallas. Okay, carry on. Wither is about having writer's block, just not being able to think of what to write. So they're all stories out of mine and John's personal feelings and emotions and lives.
So here's the funny thing. Sometimes we talked about what people interpret things, like the meaning.
Yeah.
So, people, I've had a lot of people say a lot of things about they like the poetry of that song and the deep meaning and everything. Well, when I was trying to come up with a subject matter for that particular song, I was talking to my wife and we were joking. We were talking about the Seinfeld episode where it's a show about nothing.
Yeah.
So she was like, write a song about nothing. And so that was my concept, was I was writing a song about nothing. And it turned into like the process of like that when you're going to write music or lyrics or a story, there's this point that you get to where you basically have nothing. And you're starting, you're staring at a blank page or you're holding a guitar or whatever, and the process that happens. So it's not as deep as it sounds. It starts from a very funny place, but it turned out to be a really cool song.
Myself helpless, I give in, and everything is clear.
All right.
Okay, so we didn't have a click at the end there.
No.
I wouldn't mind just doing that.
Do that once more with the click.
Give us a click.
Go. Wasting valuable tape here. We can't afford it anymore. We're on a tight budget here. We spent all our money on Starbucks. That's so fucking metal.
Nice.
That's a great ending.
Nice live performance.
Mitch Mitchell, dead at 62. And the verdict is?
That's fucking awesome. Awesome.
We're going to be lambasted by the fans, or are we going to be embraced?
We're going to be embraced by the minions.
The millions of the minions.
The minions. I think so. Awesome.
All right. Let's see what John is hearing. Well, it ain't over till the fat drummer sings. Gotta do that one again. Forgot to retard at the end. Forgot to retard because I'm a retard. The retard forgot to retard. I remember it vividly. It was about 9 years ago this week, actually. Yeah, I just celebrated 9 years of sobriety, and I had been drinking and drugging for 15 or 20 years without a single day sober. I mean, literally every day, and tried to quit hundreds of times, and always said, I'm never going to drink again. You know, I'm going out on tour. I'm not going to drink on this tour, and sure enough, you know, come nighttime, you know, I could never say no, never resist. And we had just finished up a tour in Europe, coincidentally ending on my birthday, which was the last drink I ever had in 2000. And I went home and saw 2 doctors the next day, both of whom said, if you keep drinking and drugging like you do, you won't reach the age of 40. And I had just, my second child was just born, and that scared the crap out of me, you know, because I did not want to be a Keith Moon or a John Bonham, you know, just a rock and roll casualty. And I said, you know what, I got to get myself to a meeting, and both doctors said, here's a schedule, get yourself to an AA meeting. And I went and haven't picked up a drink ever since.
With a song like Shattered Fortress, well, it's the end of the, you know, the AA suite, so to speak. So we knew that that had to be completed, and that lyric would be Mike.
My last drink was very unceremonial. If I would have known it was going to be my last drink, I would have gone out with a bigger bender. It was the last night on tour. It was my birthday. Spock's Beard was opening for us, and I was drinking with them. Always I would drink with the opening band or Dream Theater's crew, because none of the Dream Theater guys were never big drinkers. So I was always with the opening band or the crew. And I remember drinking and partying with Spock's Beard that night to celebrate the end of the tour. And that was the last night I drank. You know, the next day I got on a plane, went home, and got sober. But a couple nights before the end of the tour, I traveled on Spock's Beard's bus, and you know, we tore it up with every drink and drug in the book, and you know, it was one of those nights. But that was my last big bender. My drinking was always, when it came to the band, I always tried to be responsible. I wouldn't start drinking till after the show, and then as time went on, it would be okay. Well, maybe I'll have a couple drinks before the encore, and then it'd start to get earlier. Okay, maybe I could start drinking during the keyboard solo, and then I would start drinking before we went on, and then before the opening band. The next thing I knew, you know, by the end of my drinking career, I was fucked up on stage every night, and I'd be coming off stage with a bottle of Jack Daniels, and I'd be doing the lines behind the drum set, you know, during the show, and I knew it was out of hand. And the rest of the guys in the band, you know, they never really confronted me, but I didn't have to be confronted. I could look in the mirror and see what I was doing. Well, that's why I don't call these series of songs I've written, I don't call them AA songs. In fact, the fans do, but I don't. To me, it's a 12-step song. AA means Alcoholics Anonymous. So it's supposed to be anonymous. You're not supposed to be, you know, out
glamorizing it or whatever. So to me, I've had no problem talking about it and discussing it and writing about it because the process of recovery has been a big thing in my life. So I've had no problem sharing it, but I never try to preach it. I've never preached sobriety. I've never preached the way that AA is run, or it's, to me, it's just about the 12 steps, which is it starts with it getting sober, but it really, when you get deeper into the steps, it's more about just being a better person, living life and looking at yourself and looking at the way you treat people, and that's what the 12 steps is really about. I only broke them up into 5 songs because the steps kind of break up into different ways. 1, 2, and 3 is kind of one process. 4 and 5 is another process. 6 and 7, 8 and 9, 10, 11, 12. I kind of looked at the 12 steps and broke them up into kind of chapters. But when I had this idea 7 years ago of writing these connecting songs, I don't think I realized what the hell I was getting myself into, that it would take 7 years and 5 albums to complete. It's been great. It's been therapeutic to write these lyrics, and it's nice to have done it, but it surely now is a relief to be done with it. It was kind of like I dug myself into a hole that was too deep to get out, and I'm glad that the process is over. And I think it was a great ending. The Shattered Fortress on the new album, I think, wraps it all up perfectly, lyrically and musically. Every day when I'm on tour, somebody comes to me and thanks me for writing these lyrics and, helping them. That's what the 12th step is all about. I am responsible, to carry the message and help people that need help. And like I just said, I've never been preachy about it. I never preach sobriety. Everybody's free to do whatever they'd like with their life. But I'm just talking about how it's helped me, and if it maybe helps somebody else that's struggling, then that's great. But every day I have people thanking me for helping them to get sober, or maybe just helping, expressing struggles that they're going with, and then I could maybe give some advice to help out with however it helped me. You need a keyboard solo in this song.
Fucking A.
You do.
I need one of these. Okay.
Is that a yes or a no?
Route 66 is here.
Yay!
But you don't care.
I'm like ready to faint. I'm so fucking hungry.
I bet.
The bell from prisons past.
Exactly.
All right,
It's
we did it.
Somewhere.
7 years later, we are complete. Finally.
Celebrate tonight with some Indian food.
Celebrate tonight with a few bottles of champagne.
Yeah, baby.
Joyce is in the house. What up, Joycey? What up? What's up, girlfriend? That shit's hot. That's how that shit is done around here. By George, I think we've got it. Yo! John, is that you? You don't look like you. I want to do it with my friend here so he could be, his head could be in the background. You didn't look like you.
Really?
Yeah, you looked like,
Did I look like Diddy?
no, you look like Osama bin Laden or something. So well, he's on his way, so give us 1 minute, we'll do this punch when he gets here.
Cool.
Hey kids, who's that guy right there? I'm poking him in the head. All right.
Fly on the wall.
Last punch. I'm probably not even going to be able to play this. So we're in a doubled 1, a doubled 4, a singled 1, a single 4, and then a single 1.
Right.
But I think that's what we did like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, but the only thing different is then we shrunk even more and then we did a half and a half.
The one's on tape? The one that we did like 10 minutes ago?
No, that one's totally different.
It is?
Yeah, the one that we did 10 minutes ago was a double 1. Ah, fuck. Yeah.
So, hey, he's taking our picture.
Hey.
Yes, I am.
Hey, what is this?
It's
A little something for the online diary.
I got something for the online diary. And you know what? I'm not going to do it. I was going to whip out my belly
Oh, wow.
after I just put a nice fat burger in it. But I think I might regret this because it will be around forever to haunt me. So I'm gonna,
Yes. All right, you'll pass that.
Track that off.
Anything anybody else would like to do? Paul, would you like to share?
I'm out of
something?
here.
Mr. Myung, gonna share anything with the people? No, that's nice. Chad, nice to see you.
you might remember Chad from such famous movies as The Making of Systematic Chaos.
There you go. Right.
I was a star in that film.
Yes, you were.
And this is the new Chad, who is Rick.
Cool.
We're both named Tony.
Yeah, that's right.
I've always written about things in my life, you know, whether it be my struggle with recovery and addiction. I wrote about the death of my mom when I was a child. I wrote about that in The Change of Seasons. I've written about fights and bad relationships in my family. I've written about the band's struggles with the record company and the industry. Most of my lyrics have always been about things in my life, and so, you know, throughout the making of this record, one of the biggest struggles in my own personal life was the sadness and the, you know, the heaviness of dealing with my dad's battle with cancer. So inevitably, you know, it was going to come out in my lyrics. And I know when I write about these things, it's like an open book, and I would only do it if I'm willing to discuss it in an interview or willing for the listeners to read it or discuss it, or, you know, I have no problem with that. I wouldn't do it if I wasn't willing to be open about it.
Like The Best of Times, well, Mike knew he definitely wanted to write a song with tribute to his father and what he meant to him and how he inspired him.
At first I was wondering how it would be handing these lyrics over to James to sing, because when I wrote the lyrics, I ended up recording the song with the band, a version of me singing, and I played it for my dad before he died, and I sat at his bedside and we held hands and we cried, and it was very emotional. And it was the version of me singing. It was all very personal lyrics about my relationship with my father and all the things we had shared for 41 years. And then after my dad passed away, we played the version of me singing at his funeral as well, so I shared it with family and friends. And so I wondered how it would be to hand such a personal subject over to James to sing, and I was concerned about it, but never did I consider singing the Dream Theater version. I mean, you know, James is the voice of the band. He's got the stronger voice and the ability to deliver it in a way that I never could.
So, you know, I was wondering how it would be, but, you know, within a couple of minutes of him starting to sing it while we were tracking, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. He gets it. He's going to be able to deliver it with the proper emotion. And that's always been his job in this band. He's always sung, you know, other band members' lyrics, and he has to make them his own and deliver it with confidence and emotion that went into the lyrics when we wrote them. And that's always been his job. He is the voice of the band.
So the way that I get to that point is that, you know, I first and foremost read the lyric, I interpret it for what it says to me, and then I sit down with the lyricist, that be, and I ask them for a literal interpretation. I take that literal interpretation, go away with it, and then I take all of this information and I make it become something that I can relate to emotionally, and then it becomes sincere. It has to be me. At the end of it all, it has to be something that I can totally relate to. And then it has to be, you know, obviously expressed and conveyed in a sincere light. I lost my father, so I was able to totally get into that headspace.
The fleeting winds of time, flying through each day.
Anytime that James, you know, strike that. Every time James begins to, you know, record his vocals, he'll sit down with me or John and talk about what the lyrics mean. And you know, through the years, he's been the voice of some very personal subjects for both me and John. You know, John's written about his dad dying with Take Away My Pain, and I wrote about my mom dying in A Change of Seasons, and, you know, my 12-step songs. You know, for our whole career, James has been this voice that often has to convey our lyrics. And so James will always sit and talk about it, try to understand what, you know, each word means and each phrase, and, you know, and just kind of make it his own so he could deliver it in a way that's going to really portray the emotion of the lyrics. Yeah, I sang it.
You played it with a company?
No, it was the band. It was the music that is on the album, because we always write the music first, and then the lyrics always come much later, and the vocal tracking is much later. So I basically sang on top of the tracks that's on the album. And there's a version of me singing the song that maybe I'll release in the future as a B-side or maybe a fan club single or something. Not because I think I sing it better than James. He sings it better than me, obviously, but there's a certain amount of emotion that is, you know, because it was such a personal lyric that made the version that I played for my dad and played at his funeral, you know, made it very special.
Your spirit guides my life each day.
Count of Tuscany is a story he wrote about this this guy that he met in Italy a couple of years ago and went to his mansion and was scared for his life.
It's a long story. But anyway, Count of Tuscany was an experience that I had with my good friend Mark Snyder, who was my guitar tech, and John Myung, and another guy who is our current drum tech, who was like brand new at that time. And my buddy Mark is now a huge success in the wine business and owns Red Hook Winery in Brooklyn, the only winery in Brooklyn.
Cool.
But he was interested in possibly working with this winery in Tuscany. He said, "Do you want to come to this castle with the Count?" And so this guy, this guy Sebastiano, picked us up in his little car, his tiny little car, and we drove through the city in Florence. You know, the first thing he said was that we're going to this castle, and oh yeah, just as an aside, you know, if you know the Silence of the Lambs story, Silence of the Lambs, the sequel, Hannibal, where he's in Tuscany. Anthony Hopkins' character. He's playing at the curator of this big library in Tuscany, in Florence, and that was based on the Count's brother, like on his life.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, that's weird and scary. So we eventually, we knew that, so that was freaky. We went to this castle, met the brother, who was like Italian but had an English accent, and was smoking a pipe, and he was like this historian and everything, and we proceeded to have the most bizarre experience of our lives, the four of us, with all these like weird encounters at the castle with the brother. Really freaky. Like there's one room that we went into, and they had these like floor-to-ceiling wine barrels. It's like, and the guy was an historian, as I mentioned, and so he proceeded to tell us that during the war, his soldiers would come in there to hide from the Germans, and they'd go into the wine barrels and say, and they're still in there to this day, you know. Just like freaky things like that. When I decided to write about real life situations, I'm like, I'm writing about that.
Why not?
Yeah. So it's a little weird, a little unconventional.
Wow.
You know?
That's
Some
cool.
people might think it's hokey.
No, that's awesome.
It's funny.
I like that.
This is song number 3, which was written and conceived as the nation not inducted, but elected a new president. So this tune is affectionately, well, by some, called Obama Nation. But it's also, what would be the opposite of affectionately? It is also cynically coined by others, Abomination. So, there you have it. Song number 3. I'm going to blow through a couple takes here. Let's see what we get. Alright, so this is song 3, part 2, take 3. Alright, let's rock this shit. It's hard playing this stuff that's in 4. We can fucking eat! Hallelujah! Motherfucker! So our systematic cast stage props have come off the road and into the studio. This is awesome. This lights my drums while we play. And the ants came to hang out with us in the studio as well. Then after this album is done, this will go to my house.
Nice.
Into the Dream Theater Museum.
See you later. Yeah.
Alright kids, got some good news and some bad news. The bad news is this is the last you're going to see me playing for the rest of the session. The good news is this is the last you're going to see me playing for the rest of the session. Hallelujah! I think that shit's it. I need a good bounce to rock this shit up. That's not it. That's not it. Oh, no! Never mind. All right. See you on the road.
think a lot of it comes from the fact that we've toured so extensively over the years that we've established a very strong foundation fan base-wise, internationally. And I think it's really created, you know, a sense of loyalty from our fans around the world. And because of the kind of shows we do, they know pretty much what to expect from us. They know that it's going to be a visually stimulating show. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be, you know, not so predictable set list wise, you know, what songs we play, because we like to change it up each and every night. So I think these factors and the fact that we have established who and what we are as a live band really lends itself to success in the way that we tour.
For me personally, I'm a huge film fanatic. I mean, that's one of my biggest passions. I love film directors, and they are some of my biggest inspirations. Guys like David Lynch and Woody Allen and Alfred Hitchcock and P.T. Anderson. And, you know, these guys are my heroes just as much as any musician. So that's a big influence for me, but I really can't say as a band that we've ever written with a soundtrack or a film in mind. But we try to make each song a bit of a journey, you know, the way you feel if you're watching a good movie or reading a good book. You know, we want to make each song or even an album as a whole as something that feels like a deep experience.
You know, like I said in the beginning of the interview, you're not really sure how it's going to turn out. You just try your best, and, you know, to us, you know, we try to make it sound as interesting as we can, as fresh, and we really pay attention to the production so it sounds good. And if it has an impact on people, you don't know. You know, I mean, I met people that say, "Oh, I really don't like the new album, but I like this album," and some people say, "I love the new album's my favorite." So you can't predict it, and, you know, our responsibility is to just, I think, to do the best we can. You know,
I mean, you know, we all have different interests in different things, but in terms of Dream Theater, there's certain aspects that will always be there: metal, prog, you know, melodic. There's certain things, I mean, that I think will just have to be part of our sound. We wouldn't want to abandon our audience or, you know, what they expect from us. I know that we're not everybody's cup of tea. I know some people aren't going to like it. I know what Dream Theater does in general, some people don't like. I understand, because, you know, it's long songs. It's not what's the popular sound. James's style of singing isn't necessarily what's popular in 2009. So I understand that. How it'll stand the test of time, we never know until the test of time. You know, it takes a few years to really have a perspective, you know, on where our albums fall in the catalog. So we'll see a few years from now. Our previous record company would just rely on our fans to just do what they always do and buy the records and come to the concerts, and that's it. And they didn't promote us at all. But the difference now is that Roadrunner, you know, here I am sitting with you to talk about the record before it's out. So there's, you know, there's a certain level of marketing and promotion that they bring to the band, which is the way that a record company should treat a band and work a band. So in that respect, it's a great relationship that we're very, very happy with so far.
it's great. We've known each other for a really long time now, and we've gone through many of the same things at the same time, like getting married at the same time, having children at the same time. So we've had this sort of life experience professionally. So we have a very close bond, you know, personally, musically, professionally. It's our family, you know.
And how do we do it internally? We, you know, I guess we've been together a long time. We know that. We know how to deal with each other. We used to fight like cats and dogs in the early days. We'd bicker and fight over everything. But, you know, I guess as we've grown older, we've mellowed out and everybody kind of knows each other's place and each other's quirks, and we kind of just, you know, just go easy, you know?
I mean, I think every band goes through its growing pains. Yeah, definitely. We've had our personal conflicts and where we wanted to knock each other right through a wall. But I think every single band has gone through that. I always refer to rock and roll as a dysfunctional democracy. That's, you know, because really, because it really is. And it's getting to appreciate the other guy for all their good points, because we all have our negative elements that, you know, some our idiosyncrasies and what have you, that kind of is not as attractive as the other qualities. And you learn from being around guys, as long as we have around one another, to either you grow out of that, you mature, and you become a better person because of the conflicts and the confrontations, and or you don't, and then the band splits up. So I think that we've all had our moments, and I mean, Mike and I would be the first to tell you that we've had a lot of personal conflicts, but from that we've both grown from it too, you know. We both come to really appreciate one another for who and what we stand for. And I think right now, and for the last few years, the band's been in a great place, I think personally, and collectively, and I think too musically, I think that we all just really feel good. And we love doing what we're doing, and we're out on stage, we're, you know, it's the greatest high in the world, and so I think we're in a really good spot. But yeah, definitely there were years that we needed to grow up and just really start to appreciate the other for who and what they are.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. How do we do it? We do it because we've got a great fan base that keeps growing. It's not like we're on the downslide and, you know, our peak is behind us. We're still peaking. We're still getting, you know, bigger each and every time.
You know, well, there's a few factors. I think number one is that we have an amazing fan base. I know most bands say that, but we really do. I think once we've established a fan is there until we decide that we're no longer going to do this. And they're willing to ride it out. They expect change from us. They expect the unpredictable. They expect us to push the envelope. They expect us to be unique. They expect us to be who and what we've always been, Dream Theater, musically. And I think because of that, they really appreciate it. It's the same relationship I had when I was growing up, and still to this day with Rush. You know, I love those guys. I always have. Even as a kid growing up to where I am now, I've always appreciated who and what they stand for musically. And I think that's what it comes down to, is that we have so many fans around the world, and they're willing to be there as long as we are here. And I think that reflects in the way that our albums sell. That reflects in the way that we chart. And it also reflects the kind of people that we are. You know, personally, I mean, we're still extremely passionate about what we do. We're not doing it because it's a way of making money. You know, obviously that's part of the equation. You have to make money in order to do something, to continue to do it. But I think what really is the most important aspect about it all is that we still love what we do. We do. And I think it shows. And I think when our fans hear our music, and I think when they see us live, they go, these guys are real. You know, they're really doing this because they love doing it. They're having a blast. They're getting a high out of this, you know, still. They're not just going through the motions. And I think all of this really lends itself to the fact that we are, and we do what we do today, and we're as successful as we are.
You know, we're getting older and the fans are getting younger, and we're still here rocking it.